Okay, so hello everybody. Our next speaker is a repeat entrepreneur and veteran of product management, development, and design, Kyle Henderson, CEO of Vision API and our gold sponsor. We thank Vision API team for the support for sponsoring at the event. Vision API is Kyle's latest venture, which supports digital transformation in supply chain and logistics by providing web services and data streams that power door-to-door freight visibility solutions. Kyle will share his insights on strategic solutions for improving the efficiency of end-to-end logistics. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the Container Shipping Conference for the invitation to speak here today. As was mentioned, we'll be talking about strategic solutions for improving efficiency of end-to-end logistics. Now, in the international logistics space focused on container shipping, there are the frequent questions of where is my shipment? When will it arrive? Why has it been delayed? Why is it not playing out according to what was originally planned? And to be able to address many of those questions, there are needs for different solutions, and the solutions have different elements to them. But the key thrust in being able to have a better understanding of where, when, and why is the use of data. And resilient supply chains in the future are going to use data to unlock agility to be able to act and react in ways they have not been able to date. But the availability of live data and utilizing that data to not just help with planning, but to also help with execution is key. Now, there will always be different levels of uncertainty in international logistics in the world at large, but the ability to have live visibility into the impacts of different events is another key element in solutions that will help position companies more strategically through improved visibility and therefore improvements in their execution. And live monitoring built on live data and benchmarking that information and understanding performance over time combined, as I mentioned, with the live information leads to actionable intelligence that can enable different organizations to be able to, not just at the strategic level, but more tactically, find new efficiencies and improve the flow of goods throughout their supply chain as designed. Now, in the end-to-end logistics, there are three elements of strategic solutions. There are the data sources, so where data is generated, where information is input. Different elements of data can be live or more passive, but the fundamentals of any strategic solution that's going to be delivered via software is the data source. So we're going to start with data sources. After that, there are the data pipelines. So the data can be generated somewhere, but how is that data then moved? How is it transformed? How is it molded into information that is then available for making better decisions? And once the data has been molded into information by the pipelines, it's then a question of what are the accessible platforms that your teams and organizations will be able to interact with this data through and be able to utilize in their day-to-day execution and planning processes. So starting with data sources, let's go through what different data sources are available in the market, how can they support better visibility, and what will the implication be of utilizing these data sources in the container shipping market. So one of the primary data sources is the ocean carriers themselves. Now, the data that they're generating in a more legacy setting has been EDI messages. And these data sets of EDI messages are being generated and collected and aggregated from other parties by the ocean carriers themselves. And they represent status events around the containers from the different operational parties involved. And so they can be rolling up events from terminal operators, rolling up events from the actual vessel themselves, providing information through their schedules. But the ocean carriers themselves end up being one of the primary data sources for getting events around containerized freight. And that should not be a surprise to anyone. They are fundamentally who is moving the ocean container. Now, the next common data source, and there's varying levels of connectivity around this, but terminal operating systems. This is the software running on site or in the cloud at the terminal that helps the operational teams both manage their stacks, plan their moves, plan the management of the vessels, the working of the vessels to add and remove containers. But there's a host of information available through these systems as well, and they're a valuable data source. Now, there are different ways of connecting to them, but fundamentally, being able to connect to the parties working with terminal operating systems can provide you more information on understanding if containers are available for pickup, which yard they're in, are there any holds, such as a carrier hold or a customs hold, any fees or fines that are getting accumulated. This really all gets rolled together at the terminal operating system and can be a wonderful data source for improving visibility and helping you with that handoff between the water to the land. Beyond the terminal operating systems, we're starting to see the rise of IoT sensors in this space. Now, this is a photo of an IoT sensor that is going to be placed, and it was announced recently, on all Hapag-Lloyd containers over the next handful of quarters. And these sensors are wonderful at providing a host of different information around what's happening with your container shipment. And this is information that can be both valuable in understanding the movements of the shipment, the condition of the goods, and security of the container and the goods as well. They're able to provide location information, so lat-long coordinates through GPS, and they're able to connect and provide that information through either cellular, mobile phone networks, and or satellite connectivity. And they're also able to leverage sensors to understand the temperature, the humidity of the contents of the container, understand if there's any impacts, vibrations to the container, when the doors of the container have been opened, where were they opened. And so IoT sensors are growing in market share and their availability. We first saw them primarily getting utilized on refrigerated containers, but there appears to be a growing demand and also a supply of these types of sensors to be utilized directly on ocean containers. So this is a data source to be watching in the future. And is a natural complement to the two previous data sources of the ocean carrier, of status events, and additional events and statuses you can get from the terminal operating systems and terminal operators themselves. Beyond that, and I think we had a wonderful speaker earlier today from Spire, AIS. AIS is a data set that's available about the vessels that are moving these containers. And it stands for the Automatic Identification System. These are radio broadcasts being emitted from the vessels that typically in the past they were utilized for helping make sure vessels weren't colliding or getting too close to one another, identifying locations for vessels for emergency situations. But this information has become valuable for also understanding the movement, the location, the speed, other measurements of the vessel, the draft, how low it's sitting in the water. And this information, these AIS broadcasts are being emitted by the vessel depending, it could be every few minutes, can be picked up by satellite and terrestrial radio towers, and also provided through different providers, on intervals of 5, 15, 60, 30 minutes, depending on what your needs are. But this becomes an invaluable data source for understanding where the the vessel that's actually moving the container is located. And so once you've noticed and received the event from the ocean carrier about a load onto a vessel, AIS becomes very helpful for understanding where that vessel is, and it becomes also a key data source for understanding estimates about when those vessels are going to arrive at their next ports of call, and also chaining together the vessels to understand the full journey of your container for compliance reasons as well. So an invaluable data source that's come online in the last handful of years that has made a pretty sizable impact in the container shipping industry. Beyond AIS, we start to get into another form of technology called computer vision. And this is a broader technology and utilized in a number of different ways. Here's an example of using computer vision to automatically read the container numbers and information that are listed on the side of the container. So we're getting the SCAC code, the container number, and container type code here as well, being picked up by a camera, and we can see that this camera was located next to a rail line. Now, these cameras can be at terminal gateways, they can be next to rails, they can be at warehouses, but computer vision as a data source is becoming a very valuable and very capable and proven at other industries approach to being able to collect more information on where is that container, is it moving, is it stationary, and be able to leverage a data source that is already online quite often and has that information trapped in the video. But this is a way of being able to get the information out of any of those video feeds and become essentially at scale version of having boots on the ground, seeing where is the box and is it moving. Now, beyond computer vision, there's another variation of detecting and censoring the movement of a container. And this is rail card readers, and specific to rail, but the technology behind it can be used in other ways. It's also used for chassis as well, beyond just the emissions of a GPS signal. Primarily, rail car readers are built off of RFID reading as well. And this is the data that will help you identify when a rail car, which has been loaded with the container of interest, has passed a certain known location on the rail. And by stitching together these events, because these sensors are scattered across the full length of rail lines, especially here in North America, you're able to understand things such as the speed of movement of that rail car and therefore the container, and where was it last seen. Now, to be able to get this information, there are a number of different parties you can connect to. It can be going directly to the tier 1 rail lines themselves, who are providing legacy data sets and also providing now APIs for getting this information. It can also be working with aggregators or consortiums such as companies like RailLink here in North America. In Europe, you're needing to connect more directly with all of the tier 1 railroads, which they're, well, maybe tier 1 isn't even the right term, but the primary railroads, which you would need to connect to on a country by country basis across all the European continent. But this information is very valuable information for providing that more inland visibility as well. And speaking of inland visibility, this is where ELD information becomes valuable. Now, ELDs have been mandated, and the mandate's still being rolled out here in the United States. But the ELD-like information, which the device is actually in the cab of the truck, plugs into the systems of the truck, gets measurements on the engine, idling time, but also has a GPS device in it and is able to broadcast over the cell phone and in some situations, depending on the device, over the satellite network, the location of the vehicle, the speed of the vehicle, etc. Now, the technology is in place, but the data that you can get from this may vary based upon the location, the geographies of where the device is being used. There are different restrictions on information available from these devices in the United States versus Europe. And at the end of the day, this becomes very helpful information for understanding the movement of your container for drayage movements. And beyond container shipping, once you start getting into 53-foot dry vans in the United States, this data can also help you for FTL and LTL moves. Now, moving on to data pipelines, this is the level of transformation that helps turn data into information. And so there's a transfer with the pipeline, there's an aggregation, but this is where we start to make it more available as information at the end of the day. And there are data pipelines elements such as data lakes. You can look at Amazon Web Services. There are a number of different providers of data lake information in this industry. And this is a place that helps you collect the event information from those different sources and have it all in one location to have it be more available and create a space for you to do that transform from kind of raw data into information as well. Beyond data lakes, you start to get into middleware connectors. Now, middleware connectors are key in this transfer and transform element. They may be connecting directly to the data sources on your behalf and bringing in the data, transforming the data from the kind of the raw information into more human readable information or the format that's required by the applications you're using. And this can be done in a very technical way. This can be done in a very user-friendly way with different interfaces and such, but they specialize in being able to move the data, transform the data, turn it into information, and help you put the data and therefore the information into the software systems you use today. Now, beyond the middleware, you start to get into enrichment providers, and my company Vision is one of these enrichment providers who help go beyond just the basic transform. They help reconcile, harmonize, standardize the information, fill holes and gaps in the information from potentially other data sources, and really lift the data quality beyond what you might be able to do with just transforming the raw data source into your standard format as well. Quite a bit of data science and data engineering has to go into this one measurement of data quality, and therefore, when you understand where data quality is lacking, what solutions are available to improve, plug in, fix those issues. So enrichment providers you're starting to see emerge across the space that are helping lift the data quality of the data sources you may already have or implement additional data sources to improve the data quality as well. Now, this is information that is valuable, that has gone from the data sources to the data pipelines, and it needs to start moving into accessible platforms. And one of the key platforms used across this space is ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. And it's an integrated management system that helps with business processes. But for those systems to work well, they rely on data from a variety of different sources that have already been transformed into the structure they require, and then be utilized for both managing and designing and executing different business processes. So ERPs are common places for this data to land, and ends up being the key location where many of the team members and organizations will actually interact directly with the information. You also have transportation management systems where this data is being used in both planning and executing and optimizing shipments. There may be some visibility provided here, but this is primarily focused on the planning and execution of shipments. Beyond TMS's transportation management is order management systems, which is getting even lower and more into the contents of the box, but it's used by almost all industries who are dealing with physical goods, purchasing them from different vendors and providers, and needing to understand kind of at a SKU level what is moving where. And so connecting SKU level information back to container shipments and BL numbers, et cetera, is a powerful element in being able to leverage order management systems and accessing that kind of information as well. You also have platforms that are more focused on the visibility of information, so such as supply chain control towers, to kind of pull together information from these other platforms into a single interface or space that helps you understand the flow of your freight, helps you understand exceptions in the flow of freight and see what the ramifications of that might be, visualize this data, and provide you KPIs and analytics across the health of your supply chain. And probably the last of the collaboration platforms are collaboration applications or apps. So places and spaces where your teams will interact with the teams of partner organizations or other companies that are a link in the supply chain execution process for both sharing information and communications, being able to provide analysis and make decisions. So collaboration apps, you'll see them connected to different kind of CRM solutions. Potentially a good example of this would be platforms like Salesforce, for example. But collaboration at the end of the day can happen like email, apps, WhatsApp, specialized apps as well. But communication and collaboration becomes key in terms of the overall strategic solutions for visibility and containerized freight. Now, the key question here is, now that you understand more about the data sources, you understand more about the data pipelines and also the application platforms, what is the strategy you can play out, and where are you in that strategy curve, that adoption curve? So if we look into space and Gartner's thoughts from 2020, much of the space when you dig into this chart is we're still a little early. We're coming into that kind of slope of enlightenment for things such as like global logistics visibility, warehouse control systems, appointment scheduling. And because we're on the slope of enlightenment, the timing is now. We're going to start seeing large scale adoption of these types of solutions playing out over the next few years. And that's a key piece of information for organizations to know, because now is the time to invest. Now is the time to start that change management process. You might be hearing about other technology and such, but those might be a few years out, such as things like blockchain, more autonomous robots around touching the container, helping with more simulation and modeling, maybe some deeper, richer data science in some way, shape, or form. But anything more around systems visibility, digital twin in some way, shape, or form, point solutions for executing and kind of greasing the skids on the day-to-day execution, such as like appointment scheduling at terminals. Those are solutions that are being deployed now, and you're going to see start being deployed more and more by players across the space. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And I think it's time to answer any questions that might have popped up. So I'll hop over to Hublio and see what's going on.
Thank you so much, Carl. It was a great presentation. So let's now wait for 10 to 15 seconds so that attendees can ask questions. In the meantime, let me ask one question to you directly. So as you talked about the transformation journey, so how do you see the transformation journey when it comes to big players like BCO, shippers, and big service providers?
So I'll focus first on BCOs in this transformation journey. Part of what I see cargo owners doing in the space now is there's kind of short-term tactical needs, and then there's longer-term strategy decisions. Tactical needs are, I need something today that helps me with basic visibility of where and when. And so that's looking to see companies that may have already rolled together platforms or data pipelines that make it easier to access answers to the where, when, and why immediately for my execution teams. On the longer term planning, it's about getting the data strategy and the connectivity strategy built up for your organization in the longer term. So how are you identifying the different players and partners, the data sources you want to build relationships with, the data pipelines that you want to engage with and invest in, and also the execution partners who are making those same decisions that are aligned with the direction of your supply chain planning. But hot topics right now are visibility, and additionally, we're seeing quite a bit of improvement around the kind of point systems for execution along the different kind of nodes and modes for the supply chain, such as the scheduling systems. But what's key nowadays is increasing connectivity, access to more information, and then also having a solution, an approach to harmonizing, reconciling, and enriching the quality of that information and putting it into the systems you already use today as well. So those are the trends I'm seeing in speaking with cargo owners in the space today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. And thank you for sharing the detailed information. So what do you consider to be the most unique feature of Vision API?
Well, I'm always torn between two. So Hazel, please excuse me for offering two. And it kind of depends on who's asking. If you're a large enterprise-sized shipper, cargo owner, logistics services company, much of your need is around what Vision can do for enriching the data quality of basic information around events today. So that reconciliation, standardization, harmonizing it, filling in the holes and gaps to make sure you have a higher level of data quality. It all kind of comes down to data quality for really large organizations. But if, let's say, you're on the smaller side or you're just getting started, getting access to the information and getting connected to start receiving information ends up being the top priority and therefore the top value add that my company Vision offers and what sets us apart, because we can give instant access to seeing 98% of containerized freight moving globally the moment we engage. There's no lengthy LOA or EDI process. We're an API that gives you live, immediate access to the fundamental tracking information you need for your containerized freight.
Very well said. And how Vision API is helping big customers on demerge and detention charges?
So the key for understanding demerge and detention is really understanding the core events that happen around the terminal. So you're wanting to make sure you have a high level of consistent visibility for vessel arrive, container discharge, container gate out, and then you also want additional information around holds, last free day, and if any fees or fines have already been accumulating. Vision helps our customers understand those kind of core events to be able to get them to a point where they're identifying their at-risk containers. And then for our more advanced capabilities and advanced customers, providing that more detailed information on any holds, free time, and fines that may have already been accumulated for a number of geographies and ports and terminals we're connected to already. So those are the key data elements in being able to identify what containers are at risk of detention and merge, and then providing you the fundamental data to creating alerting and putting this information in front of the right people who can act on it and make the decision on whether you should move the box or not.
Okay, so we have one delegate asking 4 multiple questions. He's asking that, can we see everyone's cargo all over the world or your own? from the
So
tech tracking point of view in order to make the decisions. And how would we
so
measure if the vessels are ahead or behind the schedule? To sort the use of
very good
information to
question.
pull contracts or yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you can answer the first question and then we will move ahead with the second question. Yeah.
So with our tracking product, you're able to begin tracking with only either a container number or a bill of lading. So this allows you, whether you're the shipper, the owner of the goods, the consignee, and essentially either you are the party or you have the relationship with the party who placed the freight order to be able to see it. Or let's say you're a more disconnected from the process party member who may have received the bill of lading or container number. So let's say like a customs broker, or maybe you're the 3PL in some way, shape, or form. Or you could even be the cargo owner, but the freight was booked on spot market by your supplier, and all that was passed to you was the container number. All you need is a container number or a bill of lading number to begin tracking, and that gives you access to be able to track any volume of containers you need to track. Now, we do have a second product, which is called Data Hub and Analytics Stream, which is a set of historic data as well as live data from Vision tracking a large volume independent of our customers of all of the container fleet globally on a daily basis, and being able to roll that up into an analytics layer and a data lake for helping companies, one, get better understanding into the flow of information globally, but also be able to plug in already pre-processed analytics into the BI tools and systems they use today, so that they can, one, leverage kind of standardized reporting that we've helped define in the space, or two, build more specialized and customized reporting that's specific to their business, that leverage both their internal business KPIs as well as the metrics we're able to calculate on the global flow of containers and therefore trade on a daily basis. I apologize. I think there was a second question. I don't recall the question. Would you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. So he questioned that how would we measure if vessels are ahead or behind the schedule, to sort of use that information to pull contracts orders forward or delay them, etc.
Yeah, another very good question. So today with our tracking product, we leverage AI data from multiple providers, and we also provide ETAs that are generated based upon the AIS data, not just what the ocean carrier publishes or what their schedule is. We're also making schedule information available via our tracking products soon. And also independently, we're leveraging schedule information in our Analytics Stream and Data Hub product to identify what the trends are as well in terms of carriers and locations for vessel on-time arrival against schedules and schedule performance. But if I was to make assumptions about your question, I think our ability to leverage AIS data to give ETAs that are being frequently updated and be able to show that in comparison to the original ETAs and the scheduled arrivals in our tracking would be able to provide you that insight about whether it's moving faster or slower, or has it skipped the port altogether in a blank sailing.
Okay, and two more questions from Hazel. She's asking that if any customer asks for API integration, how long does it take for you to do that? I mean, the onboarding portion, she's asking about that.
Right. So on our side, the moment we get into an agreement, we provide you the API key. Maybe we can give it 2 minutes later if you want. But I think the question, the higher level question is, how long does it take to get the information available through the API into the places you want to work with it? And so we've done quite a bit of work to, one, make the API very easy to integrate and very user-friendly for your software engineering or technical teams. But more importantly, we've built up a network of middleware partners who have already connected to our API and also have connections to common TMS, ERP, visibility, control tower solutions, and can activate that data flow within a few days after getting the appropriate authorizations and permissions from the end customer, and answering a few additional questions. And beyond that, we've also built out technology platform connections that are more in the no-code, low-code space. So this is integrations into platforms that don't require any technical expertise, such as Zapier or Tray.io, that specialize in kind of do-it-yourself transform and transfer of information into whatever software you might be using. But we've also put out no-code and low-code solutions that are free, such as our Airtable app in the Airtable marketplace, a free Google spreadsheet that all it's required is you add your container numbers into it or your bill of lading numbers, you hit run, and we'll be live uploading all of the tracking event updates into the spreadsheet for you. And you can get that the day that you engage with Vision as well. So depending on your technical requirements, or maybe your requirements about it being not technical, we can provide you information within a few minutes to within several days, or maybe worst case scenario, a few weeks after you've engaged. But speed to value and information is a primary value that we focus on here at Vision.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on the accuracy of those data?
Yeah, accuracy around tracking data, and fundamentally the tracking data is also what drives performance and analytics data. There are 4 key elements to understanding quality. There's the completion. So how complete is the set of events you're getting compared to the set of events you'd expect to receive for any shipment? And there are core events you expect to see with every single shipment, and then there are extended events that could be available for the shipment depending on the transportation plan for that shipment. You know, not every container is going to go on a barge per se, so you don't always expect to see a load or discharge from barge, but that's an extended event. So you want to know what the completion rates are for providing the discrete events per container trip and rolling that up across the carriers, across the geographies, et cetera, to understand quality in that regard. The second category for understanding data quality is latency. This is fundamentally the time difference between when an event was reported as happening and when you received the event into your software system. So like when Vision or another provider was able to provide that data to you. You want to minimize the time between the event timestamp and you received and can utilize the data timestamp. So latency is another key data quality measurement. Enrichment is a data quality measurement. Now, this gets into the details of the data. So let's say an example of, you could provide location and data, but location is not always just the lat long coordinates. We think of location as a location object. So that's going to be the lat long coordinates. That's going to be the facility name. That's going to be the facility address. That's going to be the UN low code. And let's say a data object, you also have vessel objects, you have event objects, et cetera. You expect each of those fields inside the object to be populated accurately and consistently. And you typically are needing to connect and reconcile information across multiple sources, standardize information to do that, to be able to fill in all of those fields within inside the object. So enrichment is understanding your completeness levels of filling in all of the appropriate fields inside the data objects for the data that's being sent to you. And then the last measurement of quality is around ETA accuracy by frequency. So you're wanting to understand how accurate your ETAs are, how much time in advance, and how frequently those ETAs are being generated and sent over. And so this turns into a curve, and typically the curve gets more accurate the closer you get to the destination. But you're also wanting to see that, you're drawing straight lines between all the dots on this chart. You're wanting to see a very smooth curve because you're wanting lots of frequent updates along the way, because the frequency value is the sooner you know that something isn't going according to plan, the more time you have to act. So not just the accuracy of the ETA in terms of how much time was it off compared to the actual how far out it was provided, but was that updated frequently enough that it maximized the amount of time that you could actually act on it. So those are the 4 key quality categories in understanding data in this space.
Very well said. And one of our BCO customer and delegate is asking, and he would like to get more insights on how you track the shipments and how you work with the historical data to show vessel selling and timelines and delay trends etc on your platform, so that they can make a proper decision. So any insights would be highly appreciated on that.
Yeah, be happy to help. Happy to continue the conversation. You can contact us through visionapi.com. I think that information is also available in the platform here for reaching out. And aside from the tracking information, we have a preview that's at datahub.visionapi.com, an example of some of the analytics and performance data we do for port performance across the United States. But fundamentally, we have this data at a global level, and the data is being calculated and recut and pivoted for understanding the carrier performance, understanding schedule performance, understanding port and facility performance, understanding the distribution of shipments and volumes of shipments across named parties, across product codes. And that's not just information that's live and flowing, but also the historical information that's available via data lake, and also is pre-processed analytics going back in time. So happy to have that conversation if there's a need that we could fulfill.
Okay, Carl, thank you so much for sharing the valuable insights. If any attendee would like to have any questions and get more information on the product that you are offering, he or she will be get in touch with you directly. And thank you for sharing insightful presentation with the audience. It was quite interesting and we really appreciate it. I would recommend all the attendees to connect with speakers via one-on-one meeting option available on the platform. And if you think the information shared in the session might helpful to you in some or other way, please reach out to the presenter via chat option as well. He will be happy to have a chat with you. And all the presentation of the conference will be made available to all the delegates after the event. So please stay tuned. And Kyle, thank you so much for your time, and you have a lovely day ahead. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.